Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hello Hot Flash, where we help you control the midlife change. I'm excited to be here today with Deborah. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll give you a little more formal introduction. Deborah Maragopoulos is an intuitive integrative nurse practitioner who bridges the science of medicine with the art of healing. Through her extensive research and client work, she's discovered the root cause of the disease is an unbalanced or dysfunctioning hypothalamus, which is the small part of the brain that's responsible for orchestrating the body's symphony of hormones. I'm telling you, not until I got really sick did I understand what the hypothalamus does and how important it is. So I'm super excited to talk about this today and to share this with the audience. Deborah, thank you once again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start by you telling us, why are we here? Like, what inspired you to want to support women in this manner, all people in this manner?
Well, my original goal as a nurse practitioner was to go into pediatrics, but I actually ended up having a child that was born intersex. So I had to learn hormones at the age of 23, go back to school, become a nurse practitioner in order to figure out how to help this child navigate through the medical system. And back then, we didn't even have the term intersex. So that's when I started learning about receptor sites and how hormones work, and not just sex hormones, but how, because their growth hormone was affected, thyroid, I mean, basically how it all works. And so I got down and dirty with hormones really early, not thinking that's where I wanted to go. And of course, because I was interested, the universe sent me like sick, hormonally challenged people. So I was in family practice to start with. So I took care of from, babies all the way up to the elderly, both all genders, et cetera. And then I decided to do women's health for a little bit just to, really get deeper with the hormones. Plus, I believe that when you heal a woman, you heal her family, you heal her
Mhm.
community. So I really found that when I focused on the mothers, wives, grandmothers, when I focused on her health, she affected so many other people. I could educate her. She was attentive. She remembered what I was saying and then could relate it to a grandkid or her spouse or her sister. And so it was like I was more effective that way. But of course, then I got involved with women who are hormonally challenged. And at this point, I'm only in my 30s, so I'm not close to menopause or anything. But my mom was going through the change at
Okay.
this time. And so she came to me and I did her exam and everything. And she needed hormones. I started her on what was available at the time, which was synthetics.
Mhm.
And she basically told me that if I continued to give her the synthetic progestin, she would die. She was so depressed from it. She
Oh,
said,
wow.
I would rather have uterine cancer than feel this way. So you better figure out something else to get me. So that's when I started going into bioidentical hormones, et cetera. And then that just opened up a whole nother range of ways to treat people. And then in 1997, which is about 10 years after I got out of a nurse practitioner school and started my practice, I started my integrative practice. And
Mhm.
at that point, I told the universe, I'm always like bargaining. Listen, I want to learn everything about neuroimmune endocrinology. And the universe said, great, here's the sickest people you could possibly take care of. And so they were coming in vans and buses to my little office. I wasn't taking insurance, and they would find me, and they'd be groups of people, and from learning disabled kids to people with neurological issues, lots of middle-aged people. And that's when I rediscovered the hypothalamus. Not that I didn't know about it. We
Mhm.
all learned about it in anatomy and physiology,
Right.
but we don't really measure anything with the hypothalamus. We don't pay attention to it. We don't try to direct its function. Now we are. Now we are. There's
Yeah.
actually, and it's not just me. I mean, in research now, the focus of aging and obesity is hypothalamic.
Mm.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
so it's caught up, but I've been doing this for 35 years and it's fine. The research is finally
Yeah.
caught up.
Finally
So
catching up
that's
with
when I
what I
discovered
know.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's step back and let's tell folks, like, what is the hypothalamus and what's its role in perimenopause?
Okay, so the hypothalamus is a small organ in your brain about the size of an almond in its shell. Okay.
Mhm.
And it is actually not protected by the blood-brain barrier. So the rest of your brain is protected. So it's exposed to everything that the rest of your body's exposed to. So all the hormones, all the electrolytes, all the toxins, all the, the viruses, the germs, nutrients, everything.
Mhm.
It's very responsive to everything coming in, and it actually orchestrates all of your endocrine system. So those are all the glands in your body that produce hormones. So your gonads, ovaries in a woman, testes in a man, the adrenal glands, the pancreas, the thymus, which actually controls your immune system, the thyroid, pituitary gland, and the pineal gland.
Oh, wow.
And then it controls the immune system as well. It also controls the autonomic nervous system, which is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the gatekeeper between the body and the limbic system and the hippocampus, which is where our emotions are and our ability to, think and
Mhm.
cognate and
Mhm.
learn.
Mhm.
It's the biggest producer of dopamine, which is our reward center.
Yeah.
So it does so much in the body, and when it's out of balance, everything is affected. It's not just one thing,
What so
everything.
what is that you talked about how it impacts everything, but what does that communication system look like?
Well, it's a negative feedback system for most of the hormones. So for instance, when the hypothalamus is communicating with the ovaries,
Mhm.
let's say estrogen is produced by the ovaries and tells the hypothalamus there's either enough or not enough. The hypothalamus then tells the pituitary through gonadotropin releasing hormone to produce more follicle stimulating hormone to get more estrogen produced or not. So
Mhm.
it's this negative feedback system like a seesaw. So there's always the stimulating hormones are going to be high if the down hormones are low, and vice versa. And that's the same for the thyroid, the same for the adrenals. So, but it's more than that. We thought it was that simple, but it's way more than that because, for instance, gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is the main hypothalamic hormone that controls sex steroids, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, ovulation, fertility, and is the one that's most affected when all of a sudden you've run out of eggs and
Okay.
you're in perimenopause, right?
Yeah.
You're starting to
Yeah.
run out of eggs and you're not producing progesterone because you're not ovulating and you're not producing enough estrogen because you've run out of those eggs. That gonadotropin releasing hormone, those neurons actually not just affect your reproductive cycle, but affects your aging, your rate of aging. So your brain and your body and your metabolism goes into aging mode when that
Hmm.
happens.
Talk to us more. Let's go on a even deeper lay level. So,
Okay.
yeah, talk. I've never even heard of the hypothalamus before. Break that
Mhm.
down to me and tell me how that's impacting my energy, my mood, my hot flashes. What all is going on in that stage?
Well, let me give you an analogy so you get a better picture. And because very few people have a picture in their head of what their anatomy is, and they don't understand biochemistry and physiology. Let me give you something that we all work with, and that's a computer, right? We're on a
Mhm.
computer right now.
Right. Right.
So if you think of the computer as the hardware, that's our physical body.
Okay.
Okay. The software program, so all the software programs that you're messing with in your computer or your mobile, et cetera, those are all your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your immune factors. That's the neuroimmune endocrine system. Okay,
Okay.
those are the software programs. The hypothalamus is your operating systems. So
Mm,
without an
mhm.
operating systems, none of the rest of that stuff works.
Right.
Okay, so that's the beginning picture I want you to have. So
That's
the
her.
other picture I give you is kind of a symphony. So if all those glands are producing all those hormones, a beautiful music of hormones, it's the hypothalamus that's the maestro, pulling
Mhm.
in the instruments, telling it which one's coming in, right? And how loud and when to stop and when to stop that beat. That's the hypothalamus is the maestro, listening to it all and coordinating into beautiful music.
So as the
Mm-hmm,
maestro is in control, what you were saying, it's in
mm-hmm,
control,
mm-hmm.
but as a member of the band, do we have any control over the maestro? Like, how can we impact the hypothalamus so it's functioning for us at the highest level?
That's a very good question. We actually do have a lot of control in the sense that the hypothalamus is very responsive to what we do in our lives.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone, actually 4 out of 5 of your senses run through the hypothalamus. So it's watching and perceiving everything that's happening. Remember that it's not protected by the blood-brain barrier, so everything in your blood is coming to the hypothalamus. So what you're doing in your life, so for instance, when you choose to turn off the lights and go to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
tells the hypothalamus it's nighttime and to start to produce nocturnal hormones. If you don't turn off that light, if you have a TV running while you're sleeping, or you're on your device, you're
Right.
actually interfering with the hypothalamic function. Okay, so sleep is one thing. Other
Yeah.
choices we make. How many toxins do we expose ourselves to? Are you continuing to drink water out of bottles that have BPA in it? And those are endocrine disruptors, which affect the hypothalamus. Okay, what kind of nutrients are you taking in? Are you eating a healthy diet to provide the hypothalamus with everything it needs?
Yeah. All
Is
right.
that
Yeah,
okay?
it makes a million percent sense. And I think we often think that we are out of control in this stage of life. And you're very clearly telling us that we are not. If we're, making sure that the lights are turned off, we're preparing for bedtime, we're making sure that we're eating well and drinking quality water. And you mentioned toxins very, very briefly, but there are so many other toxins that are impacting us. Can you go down that path a little bit more? Because I don't think people recognize that, eating off your plastic fork and your plastic plate and the plastic cup and all those things may be impacting your health as well.
And plastics, which are the BPA, which is endocrine disruptor, is just one of many things that affects the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is super sensitive to toxins. Oftentimes when I have a patient who's not responding to my treatments, I
Mhm.
will do a heavy metal detoxification analysis to try to see if they're full of heavy metals. And as soon as we start pulling those heavy, chelating them out, the hypothalamus functions a little bit better. So it's amazing how many toxins are in our environment. Now, the problem is we can't control all of that. Some of it we can make choices, some we can't. So the more you provide your hypothalamus with the nutrients it needs, and then the sleep and healthy mindset and activity, not being sedentary. So there's 5 pillars we'll talk about it that will help the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus is able to do its job better. And part of its job is detoxification. So it
Mm,
controls your metabolism, but it also controls detoxification. So for instance, if you're super toxic and you're not providing the body nutrients that it needs, and you're hormonally challenged going through the change, going through menopause, your hypothalamus is going to slow down your metabolism to almost zero because you're producing more toxins every time you burn energy. So
yeah.
women will come and say, why am I gaining all this weight? I've stopped my periods, now I'm gaining all this weight. And so we have to detoxify them. We got to make sure they're cleaning things up, or that they're eating better, that they're sleeping better, supporting their hypothalamus nutraceutically. And finally, the hypothalamus says, okay, now it's safe to let go of some of this weight.
Right.
In your body fat is where you hold a lot of your toxins. So you don't want to overwhelm the system and dump it all back out again.
Yeah. Yeah. That
So,
makes a ton of sense. So you talked about lifestyle. You have 3 tips that you often tell people that they need to follow. What are those 3 tips?
well, I actually have 5 pillars, but I'll
Five.
start with the top 3.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So the
right.
5 pillars for hypothalamic health is number 1, getting enough sleep in the dark. Okay. So
In the
7 to
dark.
9 hours in the dark. That means all the lights are off.
Yeah.
And you want to prepare for sleep. So you start telling your hypothalamus to go into nocturnal mode, because it's not like a switch that all of a sudden the light goes on and off, right?
Right.
It's literally the hypothalamus starts realizing it's time, and then hormonal levels start building up. So if all of a sudden you do everything at midnight, I turned off the lights, I'm off everything, it's
Hmm.
going to be 3 hours before your melatonin peaks and you go into that deeper sleep. So that needs to happen way before. So what
Hmm.
I usually tell my patients and my customers is there's a reason why we have a sunset, and it's pink. That pink light tells our hypothalamus that it blocks those blue rays from the daylight, and it tells the hypothalamus nighttime's coming, let's get ready.
Yeah.
So it's not just about sleeping. During sleep is when your immune system is basically cleaning house and protecting you too. So there's so much going on in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay. The
Yeah.
hypothalamus needs that. It needs that trigger. So if you still need to get on your devices and things, use blue blocking glasses. I prefer you not. I prefer you read a real book before bed and not be on your device. And
True.
then your hypothalamus is super responsive to your habits. So whatever your habit is to get ready for bed, take a warm bath, get your jammies on. If you have an herbal tea or something, all of that starts triggering the hypothalamus to get you into nocturnal mode.
Mm.
And you need to be in that mode for 7 to 9 hours, because after melatonin's produced, there's another hormone that is released by the hypothalamus. It's called prolactin. And prolactin actually is what runs your immune system. It actually tells your thymus to tell your T cells the difference between you and other. If that doesn't happen, you develop autoimmune diseases.
Mm.
So one of the things that
Happy you just
menopausal
made
women
that
will say is that
connection.
they get sick more often,
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
catching more, or I'm all of a sudden more sensitive to things. I was never allergic to this, or now I can't wear this material or whatever. And that's because their immune system's not functioning as well because their hypothalamus is dysfunctional.
Mm. I love that you just made that connection because a lot of times people don't make that to autoimmune or to the increase in sensitivity, increase to being more sensitive to foods and so forth. So yeah, that was
Mhm.
a great connection. Yeah,
So that's just
that's
one pillar.
one.
That's
Mhm.
one.
Yeah, yeah. Let's keep them going.
Okay. So number two is nutrition. So
Okay.
basically what you put into your body are the building blocks of what the hypothalamus, gets to work with.
Hmm.
I prescribe to a plant-based diet. Mediterranean diet works very, very well. It's very hypothalamic friendly. Plant-based meaning you're eating mostly produce, vegetables and fruits and legumes and whole grains. You are getting protein from animal sources, from dairy and fish and poultry, not as much red meat. It does allow you to have red wine. It does allow you to have caffeine. Everything's in moderation. So I'm not saying being, completely a teetotaler and not doing anything else. It's
Right,
just keep everything in moderation.
right.
Very low in simple sugars, very low in, processed foods. So if you can change anything and stop, get rid of the processed foods, dump those simple sugars and start filling your plate with, plants, basically fruits and vegetables, legumes, you're going to do your hypothalamus so much better. Now, the hypothalamus also communicates with your digestive tract and particularly with your microflora, the friendly bacteria in your gut.
Right.
So if you're out of balance in your gut, the hypothalamus is going to have to start to heal that as well. I see that a lot when I start my patients and customers will start on my nutraceutical that supports the hypothalamus, that if their gut's out of balance, it immediately tells them and they don't even know it until
Mm,
they start supporting and the hypothalamus says, oh my gosh, we got to clean this up.
right,
Gas and bloating and I didn't have this problem before. I'm like, yes, you did. You just didn't realize it. And now your hypothalamus is, do you realize we have an elephant in a room, a skeleton in the closet? Like there's something going on here. And
right.
it's time to get that healed up.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Yep. We can keep moving through them. We have
All
three
right. So
to
number
go.
three. So one is sleep, two is nutrition. Number three is activity.
Mhm.
We know that when you're sedentary, that actually affects your metabolism. And one of the factors is the hypothalamus controls your metabolic rate. We didn't understand that before. Most people, when they think of metabolism, they think of the mitochondria and they think of the cells, and they're like, it's all about cellular health.
Right.
Yes, but no, because it's the hypothalamus that controls cellular health. And this is where the obesity research is coming in. And this is why we were able to start creating anti-obesity drugs, because they realize that it's not at the cell, it's the hypothalamus that's controlling it. So most of the anti-obesity drugs are actually focusing on hypothalamic neurons that control how much fat you store, how much glycogen you store, whether or not you're hungry or you're satiated. All of that is controlled via the hypothalamus. All of it, all the hormones from your gut, your pancreas, and your fat cells are all talking to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus, through hormones as well as the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, communicates back to all of these parts of your body that are controlling metabolism and says, we either need more energy or less, or we need to conserve energy and not burn as much.
Mm,
So when you go through a hormonal change like menopause, it affects your metabolism, because if you think about your hormones like a pyramid, your sex hormones are the base of it.
right.
So sex hormones, you've got your adrenal hormones, pancreatic, you've got your thyroid, your pituitary, your pineal hormones, but the base is the sex hormones. So when those become out of balance, it affects the entire pyramid of health.
Mm, mm. That makes tons of sense as well. Yeah.
So if the more active you are, the more metabolically active you will be. You'll burn more energy, and that's actually good for the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus needs that feedback mechanism in order to stay healthy and to stay active and to keep orchestrating, being the maestro of your symphony, to keep
Yeah.
doing it well.
And that
So
activity,
activity is key.
yeah, that activity, physical and mental as well. Would you
Mhm.
think both are important? Yeah.
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 So we will talk about the mental aspect. So this is the physical aspect. So there's kind of exercises like a three-legged stool. You've
Mhm.
got your endurance, so that's your cardiopulmonary, and getting that heart rate up enough, so
Right.
you're in the
Right.
aerobic zone if you can no longer sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star while you're walking really fast, or you need to get that heart rate up. And you
Yeah.
need to do that, at least a few times a week for at
Mhm.
least, 20 minutes or so, a few
Right.
times a week. And then you need some kind of weight resistance exercise. It very much changes your metabolic rate if you stimulate your muscles, and your muscles are getting stronger. The more you're stimulating your muscles through weight resistance. They don't have to be actual weights. They could be your own body weight, like
Mhm.
push-ups and pull-ups and tricep dips, things like that. That actually helps your mitochondria. You grow more mitochondria in your muscles, and that whole feedback mechanism that kicks back to the hypothalamus to say, okay, we need more energy, we need to burn more energy.
Right.
And then you've got your flexibility. And that's probably one of the biggest things for women as we're going through the change is, yes, we may still have our endurance and we may still be fairly strong, but we're not as flexible, because when you lose your estrogen, your collagen becomes more stiff. And so you don't have that flexibility. So if you're not stretching, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
You
have to
will.
do it all. You have to think about that whole body
I
and
know.
take good care of it.
There's so much.
I know it's a
But
lot.
it's not as hard as it sounds, though. It's just some simple, productive steps that we need to begin to take, and we can add them in a little bit at a time, but just make sure that we're being consistent with them. I think that's really important.
Oh, it's so important. I mean, you have people that are pet owners and they have dogs. They wouldn't not walk their dog. Why are they not walking
That's a
their
good
body?
that's
Right?
such a good example. That is such a good example. You are so right. Yeah.
So
So what
yeah, so take care of this body.
yeah, yeah.
You
What are
only
the
got
other
the one.
I know,
Okay.
right? You only have the one. What are the other two pillars?
So the fourth pillar is what I call a healing mindset. And so
Mhm.
this is where the way you think, what you think, the way you think and what you believe in affects your physical health.
Right.
Okay. And there's actually been studies on this, and it's part of the placebo effect. But if you don't believe that you're going to get any better, then all those other three pillars aren't going to help.
Yeah. That's
My
so
magic powder isn't going to help. Okay. You have to believe in it. And I find that my patients and customers that do the best learn how to be their own best cheerleaders.
Mhm.
They're very positive. It's what you focus on. If you're focusing on everything that's going wrong, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It keeps getting more wrong.
Yeah,
It keeps getting
yeah.
worse.
I have one person in my mind, so I'm going to make her listen to just this part over and over and over
Mhm.
again.
Well, they've just, worry is such a huge issue with health and well-being. I mean, there's a lot of symbology, I believe, to diseases and which parts of your body actually become sick and
Mhm.
ill. And worry warts, they end up getting diseases that are very classic. They've got the gallbladder diseases, they got intestinal stuff. It's just so interesting. And well, even like breast cancer patients, I've rarely met a patient with breast cancer who is really, really poor at taking care of herself and really good about taking care of others. Like
Mhm.
she's literally nursing the rest of the world, but not getting anything back for herself.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
So and like I said, we can do all those other things. We can get all the pillars going, but we don't change that belief system and start cutting those, literally disentangling those cords of attachment to all of those, the negative stuff that she believes in her life, you
Mm,
know, the not enough, that she doesn't deserve it, that I need to be taking care of everybody else first. We need to fix all that
yes.
in order for her to start really the healing process.
Yeah, yeah, that's a second and third person just came
Yeah.
came to mind when you said that as well, and so I totally believe that there's that connection, in our overall health with the way that we're thinking about ourselves. Because
Hmm.
I came through a lot. I mean, couldn't even drive for 2 months. But at the end of the day, every day I'm like, okay, this is temporary. There must be a purpose to it. Let's keep it moving so I can get to the end result. And that's why I think that I was able to overcome all of the things that I was going through because of your pillar four, what you're saying, making sure that we're keeping our minds focused on what it needs to be focused on.
Well, and the thing is you're really not stuck with your mindset. That's very malleable. Now you can be programmed and
True.
you can be just like your, negative naysayer mom or something like, I'm just like her. Well, we can fix that.
Yes.
I married someone who was a glass half empty person, who now is a glass half full person. Now that was a and I've always been a glass half full. I'm always looking for the positive. So, and certain people have that personality and certain people have the other, but you can shift it. And
Yeah.
part of it is with the proof. Like, look, when you're really focusing on this good stuff, more good stuff happens. And
Yeah.
then you tell the universe, thank you, more, please.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I know. I love that. I
Well,
love
one of the things that I tell my patients, I just told a patient this yesterday or 2 days ago, that, when we're talking to little children about like their school day, instead of
that.
saying, how was your day? We ask them real specific things. That's
Mhm.
much more effective. Like,
Yeah.
what did you learn today? Who did you help today? Who helped you today? We start pulling out the good, the positive stuff,
Yeah.
right? And we need to
Yeah.
start asking ourselves that. What did I learn today? What was something that was really great today? What made me laugh today?
Mhm.
What was something super positive that I want to repeat? And what was something that maybe didn't work so well that I could fix?
Right.
And
Right.
that's kind of the end of the day. Like, how did this day go?
Mhm.
So, and you don't want to bring all that negativity to the bed, right? You don't want to sleep with that. So let's have a review and then let it go and start the next day again. What
Yeah.
am I grateful for that happened today?
Yeah. People will say, and I hear the naysayers in my brain going, that's easier said than done. Well, it's easier done. You can do that. And it makes a huge difference in your health. Even if you're, like you said, doing all of the other things right, if you don't get that piece right, it's not going to work unless it's working in conjunction with one another. I love that.
Well, it can be magical. So
It can
in
be.
2002, we moved to this house that we have now, and I have horses, so I moved my horses over here. And at about that time, we were also putting a swimming pool in.
Mhm.
Okay. And we were about to go on a like a vacation, and it happened to be a kind of a wet, very foggy day, and my horse was kind of hot and spirited, and so I'm riding her for the last time before we go on this vacation. And I saw in my mind's eye her slipping and falling and me getting crushed under her. And I'm like, erase that negative thought. Well,
Yeah.
sure enough, she did slip and fall. I didn't get crushed because I vaulted off her, but I ended up knocking my teeth out,
Oh,
landed right on my face and knocking my teeth out. Catch my horse, get my teeth, head to the dentist. The dentist is like, these teeth are never going to stick. I'm like, shh, you can't say that.
mhm.
These will stick. If I could stick them in myself, I would, but I need you to do this. So you just need to be positive about this.
Yes.
And then I went home and I was a mess. I had, you know, cement, asphalt in my face. I looked like somebody had beat me up. Everything was a mess. This happened on a Friday. Next day, 24 hours later, I'm still pretty swollen and everything. And I'm sitting out by this giant hole in our backyard, which is the pool,
Mhm.
which is going to be a pool. And it's a mess. And the animals and the poor horse is bruised up too. And she's hanging over me. And we're all feeling sorry for ourselves. And I hear this voice in my head that says, it's your turn to start practicing what you preach.
Wow.
And I'm like, shoot. I'm feeling sorry for myself instead of. So I went back in the house. I looked in the mirror and I told my body what a great job it was doing at healing. And every time I was cleaning my face or putting ointments on it, every little bit of stuff I could sip because I couldn't chew anything, I
Mhm.
would tell my body it was going to use this for healing. This
Mm.
happened on a Friday. Monday, I went back to the emergency room where I had gone for x-rays to make sure I was okay.
Right.
To pick up those x-rays, nobody recognized me. I was completely healed.
Oh
These
my
are the same teeth they still have stuck. They
oh
never
my
died like
goodness.
they were supposed to. Okay.
That's very, very
So,
powerful.
but it was work.
Yeah.
Every single bite, every single sip, every
Yeah.
single time I was cleaning, I was telling my body what a great job. I was looking for the good. I
Mm.
was looking for the positive.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that?
No, it 1,000,000% makes sense that we do it on ourselves. I'll be honest, like I've done it on myself, but I do it on my plants around the house too, because I'm like, you are a healing vessel. And I know that. So talking to live things, speaking life over yourself so that you can get that healing. I am a witness that truly works. I'm so happy you shared that with everyone.
Well, that was the, remember the Japanese water studies from
Mhm.
was it like 25 years ago, where
No.
they actually they put water in, plain pure water,
Mhm.
and they froze the water, but they
Mhm.
froze the water, both waters. One water was only told negative stuff. The other water was told positive stuff. The freezing of the water, literally the crystals from the negative was disrupted crystals, like it was, and the one with the positive were beautiful, like snowflakes,
Yeah.
and they've done that with lots of different things. So they've done it with prayer, they've done it with mantras, they've done it with like little kids just saying, "Good
Yeah.
job, water," or you're an ugly water, or I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who or what, it's the intention.
Yes, yes, yeah, that's where I get it from myself and for my plants as well. Because I'm like, "You will live, you will not die."
It's
But you're right.
intention.
So I didn't know that that was the study or the name of the study, but I've seen people do it with plants
Hmm.
or with other
Yeah.
objects as well, and you're absolutely right. People, if you're listening, just Google it, you will find that information and see that process. So it's so important that we do. We have to speak life over it's a our words matter of life or death, and we get to
Hmm.
decide if we're going to speak life or speak death over ourselves. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Speaking it and then also thinking it. So when your thoughts
Yeah.
are going through your head, it's normal for negative thoughts to go through your head. It's kind of
Yeah.
a knee-jerk reaction. You learn this. Uh-oh, the next, another shoe's going to drop. Or
Yeah.
as soon as that happens, reverse it and say out loud, "No, this is good."
Yeah.
My husband did this yesterday. We were in the car and we kept coming up because we had a big rain. We kept coming up to roads that were like closed,
Mhm.
because of the rain and stuff like that. And I'm like, "Wow, it doesn't look like you've had very good luck in the roads." And he says, "I make my own luck." And sure enough, we went by a road that was supposed to be closed and we went through it and it was fine.
It
He
was
says, "Look,"
fun.
and we got to see this beautiful view and we got to see the river and we just had good luck out
Yeah.
of a supposed bad luck.
Yeah, it's
So it's
all
all a
perspective.
perspective.
It's all, yeah, we just said that at the same time. It's all a perspective, all a perspective.
We're on
So
the same wavelength.
yes, we are. Let's tell people about pillar 5. We don't want
Right.
to leave that off.
Okay, so pillar 5 is nutraceutical support for the hypothalamus. Research has shown that the hypothalamus is very responsive to nutrition. There's research on amino acids, particularly branched chain amino acids. There's research on plant polyphenols. There's research on PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, that have shown that the hypothalamus is super sensitive to it. It's, again, how the obesity drugs work. The hypothalamus is super sensitive to insulin, glucose, glucagon, fatty acids, omega-3s versus 6s, 9s, very sensitive to nutrition. What I found in my own life and with my patients is that with all those other 4 pillars, they still weren't always getting enough in the nutrition that they needed in order to fix their hypothalamus. So what happened is I was back in the late 90s, I was seeing, well, medicine calls them train wreck
Mhm.
patients. They have like everything wrong with them,
Yeah.
everything. And oftentimes I was the, fifth, sixth, seventh provider, evaluating them because nobody could figure out what was going on. And they had very similar issues. And their issues were, most of them were middle aged, most were overweight, they were all depressed, they couldn't sleep, some were a little bit anxious as well. Adrenals weren't functioning normally, thyroid wasn't functioning normally, and they were usually going through the change or they had premature like ovarian failure, so their hormones were off. And they were very, very similar. And at the time, 1998, 99, there was no real good Google search engine. So I get this magazine, Scientific America, in my office. It's one of these, I got, Good Housekeeping, Scientific
Right.
America, you know, highlights for the kids.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it had a study on fat white mice that had all very similar symptoms to my patients. And they sacrificed these mice and they found that there was a hormone in their hypothalamus that wasn't functioning properly. It was called pro-opiomelanocortin. And that's when I really discovered the hypothalamus. That's when I realized, holy moly, I've been giving these patients, all the best lifestyle advice, and they're doing their best. And I'm giving them all these other different supplements, but nothing's really working because I wasn't focusing on the hypothalamus. Adrenal
Mm,
support, thyroid support, but not the hypothalamus. So I, basically tried to research and couldn't find, there wasn't the research about what I was telling you about amino acids and PUFAs,
right.
polyphenols, things like that back then. So I decided to meditate about it. The intersex child of mine, who was a teenager at the time, said, Mom, just meditate about it and see what comes in dreams. And I basically said, and I'm a lucid dreamer, so I tell myself, I need an answer to this. So show me what I need to know. And I dreamt a formula. It over 3 months, I dreamt a nutritional formula. So I put it together. I experimented with it. I had a bunch of patients who wanted to like be my guinea pigs.
Right.
And it took a few years to finally get it completely manufactured. And I was able to create my formula, which I called Genesis Gold. And it's basically all the nutrition that's missing in our diets to help the hypothalamus function better,
Hmm, awesome.
to optimize that functioning. So my menopausal women, a lot of them don't need to take hormones
Right.
because their hypothalamus is well supported, or if they do, they take very minimal amounts because their
Mhm.
hypothalamus is better supported. It helps with the aging process, but it helps anyone with hypothalamic imbalance, not just menopausal women.
I love that so much. I find a problem and then you found a solution to the problem.
Well, then you got to research it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this, to me, that I love the answers I get in my dreams and my intuition, but then
Yeah.
I'm a scientist, so I got to research it. I
Yeah.
got to
Of
check
course.
it out. I got to prove my hypothesis.
I love that. I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
What are you reading or listening to right now?
I'm glad you asked me this question because I'm super excited about this one.
All
So
right.
I just recently, it was actually it was in a Crohn group I joined. I joined a Crohn group, a Facebook group about Crohn's. I thought they'd be a little wiser than they were, but they're mostly women kind of struggling through this time of life. Now
Right.
we think of Crohn, you think of old hag, but that's
That's
not what the
what
word means. It means crowned. It means you've lived long enough that you have this wisdom and you're like becoming a sage.
Okay.
Okay. So I've always been interested in this from like 20 something years ago. I'll be 63 next month. So, more than 20 years ago, I wrote a book about kind of the divine daughter energy and got invited to a grandmother's council. And I was like so attracted to their energy because they were just so wise, and all these younger people would come to them and ask for blessings. And it was just amazing energy. And I'm like, I want to be like that. And they're like, you can't become one of us until you stop bleeding out your wisdom,
Oh.
until you go through menopause. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy.
That's
So I
deep.
read a bunch of books. I did a lot of work. I, finally became menopausal, and I got turned on to, this is an older writer. She's been around a long time. She wrote the book Women Who Run with Wolves, Clarissa Pincoli Estes. She now has it's actually an audio series. It's called The Power of the Crone. And she basically, she's a storyteller, and through story, she talks about basically the power of being at this age and how the maiden, the child, the young woman, the mother, and the crone are all within us all the time. But as we go through these different stages, one's more prominent. Does that
Mm.
make sense? So I still
Pick
have a
the one.
child in me, a
Yeah.
maiden, and a
Yes.
mother in me, but I also
Yeah.
have a crone. And I remember being a little girl and having crone energy,
Yeah.
you
Me
know,
too.
So it's just a matter of moving into this space. And
Yeah.
it's really been eye-opening and a lovely thing to listen to when I'm like walking, or her stories. And it's like the kind of stories I remember being told at my grandmother's feet.
Oh, that's
It,
awesome.
you know what it feels like listening to her voice is when I was a little girl and teenager, at the end of the day, I would sit in front of my Nana,
Mhm.
and she
Right.
never sat. She was super busy, busy,
Yeah.
busy, busy, busy lady. But she'd sit at the end of the day and she would play with my hair.
Oh,
She would brush it, braid it, play with my hair. And there was something, and there was all this energy coming through her hands, and we chat about our day, but there was something about her hands on me. And when I'm listening to Clarissa speak about the crone and the stories, I
right.
feel like my Nana's playing with my hair.
Oh.
Oh, it's just
That's
so
awesome. I'm gonna have to listen to that. I'll make sure
you've
that I
got to
put
listen
in show
to it.
notes, but
I
I
think I
do.
got the class through Sounds True. You
Okay.
know, it was pretty inexpensive too. It's like, I don't know, it was less than 20 bucks or something. It's old. It's an older fireside chat that she did with, I think there's, I don't know, 8 different sessions, but it's really beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to make sure I check that out, and I'll
And
put
it's
it in the show
perfect for
notes as
this
well.
time.
Yes.
Perfect for this time.
Yeah, yeah. Deborah, this has been such an amazing conversation. How can people find you?
You can find me at genesisgold.com. genesisgold.com. I have, if you also want to look me up, look up the Hormone Queen. I'll pop up.
Okay.
I
All right.
got I got kind of tagged with that quite a few years ago. But my website is genesisgold.com. All the information about me, my products, my books. The book, although you originally got interested with me with my hypothalamus handbook, the
Right.
book that I think and which is I love that I put this together. This is like the it. But I think your audience would love the menopause action plan
All right. We will
because
make
it's very specific about perimenopause through postmenopause, the hypothalamic connection. And then I go through every single hormone that gets out of balance in your body
wow.
when you're during the change and why it may need to be replaced or not, and then go through risk factors. And so at the end of it, you can go onto my website, download a free like a therapeutic plan and fill it
Mhm.
out, bring it to your provider, kind of like a birth plan, but it's your menopause plan, right?
Um,
Menopause action plan. It's your
yeah.
map. And you'll know exactly whether or not you're a good candidate for hormone replacement therapy, what needs to be checked. I actually give you a whole blood list of things they need to be looking at,
Awesome.
and also the other exams that are necessary at this, diagnostic kind of exam,
Oh,
screenings.
I love that. I love that.
So just
For
an empowerment.
yes, it is. For everyone that's listening, Deborah and I also did a Facebook Live. So I'll make sure that we link that because that's packed full of additional juicy, good information that folks can use as well. Deborah, thank you so much for being a guest today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, everyone, thanks for listening to Hello Hot Flash, where we help you control the midlife change. Make sure to check out the show notes where we will include links to all of the subjects we covered today. Here's to your health.